Hello everyone, if you're watching this on playback, this is Crystal Racing doing a special live. I will be talking about the Red Bull situation and I will be doing other content this week, but I just have something to get out of the way. I wrote a very special list this week, last night, where I was thinking about which team sports, not individual sports, so oh boy, yeah. Well, one of my most prolific subscribers, Mr. Sargeant, had his say. I think he made a bit of a mistake towards the end because I think he kind of forgot that this was talking about team sports. WWE, is that even a sport or is that a spectacle? I'm not even sure. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen like countries or even like cities or locations celebrate one of their best wrestlers succeeding at WWE due to the fact it's more like pantomime than a sport. Boxing, that is definitely an individual sport, so I'm sorry, I think you failed to read the description of my article called which is the best team sport. Rate the team sport out of 10. Netball 2 out of 10. I think he was being a bit nice there because honestly, I have read the rules about netball. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But netball, there's so many rules in netball. It's not even fun. Like, if there was ever a sport that was clearly written up for the sake of giving a sport to the opposite gender, as well as, a really heavy dose of health and safety and human resources, this is it.
Objective in netball. The objective of netball is to score more points than your opponent. The team is supposed to pass the ball around and shoot it into the goal ring to score goals. Scoring in netball. Scoring in netball is very straightforward. Each time the ball goes through the net, the team gets a score. Rules of netball. Center, 5, wing defense, 6, goal defense, 7, goalkeeper. 5. A netball game is equally divided into 4 quarters, with each quarter lasting for only 5 sides. 12. Unlike other sports, only the goal shooter or goal attack can score goals in netball, and they must be within the semicircle.
By the way, the fact that you can only score a goal within the centre circle in netball, and the fact that only 2 players can score, really honestly damages the sport as a spectacle. Thank you for the like. 20 people watching. I suppose tagging ASMR always helps. I probably will forget about it. Yeah, well, my sister used to play it. Honestly, it looks like basketball, but really, there's very little contact or aggression allowed, and just go and type in netball. Like, it's a sport that's mostly played in the British Commonwealth, so that's why you probably never heard of it, and it's just as bad as it sounds, I'm afraid. Like I said, what's the point of a non-contact activity? Like, I suppose if you're like an old person, it's fun, but I don't know whether you can really throw a ball around when you're like 60 or 70 with your joints aching. Water polo, team rowing, I beg your pardon, is pretty much what everyone has probably seen on a TV screen during the Olympics. It's just a bunch of blokes with a coxswain at the other end of the canoe shouting at them. I mean, as long as you don't make a false start, it really is a case of who can row faster than the other team alongside them on the same canal, or lake, or river. But really, it's not really much tactics involved apart from maybe pace yourself and then go and sprint towards the end, like a long distance race. But It's not really much to it, is there? Water polo up next. Water polo can be. I mean, the thing with water polo is that because you're stuck in water, you can't really move very quickly.
Water polo is a fun water sport where just make sure there's an even. Players are allowed to grab, hold, pass, and block the ball with one hand only. If a player uses two hands at any time, a foul is called, and their team passes the ball to each other, in control of it. Player-to-player contact will result in a shot clock, and each quarter is 8.
All I'm going to say is, yeah, I also played water polo when I was at school, but I don't really know when it. I mean, I've watched it on TV, like watching it on the Olympics, and it's just really slow. Well, I mean, I am trying to skip like the video because obviously of copyright. Like, I don't want to get in trouble because I showed an entire video of something, but you know, because they are not my videos; these are wiki videos or whatever it was. Next up is Tour de France again. What is there to say other than you're just constantly slipstreaming your teammates? And let's be honest, it only really gets juicy during sprint events. But as we all know, lots of doping is involved. Even though they've clamped down on a lot of substances, you can still. Oh, right, they're open to use on any platform. Yeah, but I don't really want to go into like. I don't really have anything interesting to say about water polo, to be honest. So let's just leave it at that. Endurance cycling. I don't need a video to explain this. We all know what it's about. It's just cycling across country lanes, town centres, and all that. So, I mean, I know the French love cycling, but it's not like a. I mean, sometimes you might get close races. But apart from that, like, if there's no like close competition going on, then there's not much to say. Next up, but I know this might be quite controversial with some people because I know someone's like, "Oh, of course you're going to say that because you're a Brit." But let's be really honest about American football. A lot of it is just a lot of 20 stone, 6'4" men smashing into one of each other. I have to say the tackling technique is really questionable. And there's only like 2 or 3 players per team that are like really skillful. I think the quarterback, the kicker, and maybe, I don't know, maybe one of the tight ends or whatever position it's called. Apart from that, you've got 11 men per side, but a lot of those 11 men are just involved in whatever the equivalent of an American was it called a scrum, but I don't know what the American football terminology is. Funny thing is that American football, like rugby, will organise their their players in the same sort of positions as you get when they go to like a naval battle, where they like organise like a hooker in one position, a flanker in another position. Only obviously, of course, the other thing that I don't like about American football is that you're allowed to. I mean, even though yes, it can be fun watching a quarterback pass the ball 70 yards forwards. I mean, essentially, it just looks very similar to rugby league, but of course, that's another story for another day. Relay races, relay sprints. I mean, 100 and 400 meters. this is a really hard one. It depends on what's going on. Like, some teams might pick their slower runners first and then they go up faster and faster, while some might go with a faster runner to start off with and then hope the slower runners can hold on to the advantage towards the end of the race. But obviously, the only like majorly interesting thing is obviously when they pass the baton on to a teammate, which pretty much can make or break whether you actually win the race or not. Like, to be honest, it's probably more or less the most exciting thing I can think of when it comes to track and field. Because the only thing track and field has as a spectacle is wondering who's going to be able to break a world record on a particular day. Like, who's going to break the long jump record, triple jump, 100-meter, hurdles, whatever. Volleyball, I don't care what people say about what I wrote. Volleyball. I mean, I don't need to explain the rules like I do with yeah, I mean that's the problem with American that they all have to wear those hard helmets, hard hats, because it's not really like an actual proper way of tackling people like you get with rugby or soccer as they call it, or even like the Australian and Gaelic rules for their version of some football. I mean, I suppose if you're one of those weirdos who like to stare at bikinis, swimwear, parts of the female human anatomy. Oh yeah, oh right. Oh yeah, was there controversy at the last Olympics where apparently the Americans did the passing of the baton incorrectly? Yeah. Why have I got 2 messages held for review? Like, what's going on? But anyway, volleyball, yeah. I mean, if you're the type of person who struggles to talk to the opposite sex, and for some reason you live in a household where or you're not allowed to look at blue movie material, then you're probably a fan of volleyball. Baseball, rounders, softball, shinty, lacrosse, and hurling. I don't know anything about those sports. Okay, I knew someone was going to take a dump on car racing. Plane chins, okay? You don't know the beauty of watching peak Kimi Raikkonen take a massive dump on 19 on the driver's his peak. Of course, we are all entitled to our opinions. Now, I know Shinty is very much the inspiration for hockey and bandy and lots of other stick sports. Hurling, I don't know. Hurling's a Gaelic sport. Lacrosse, I've got no idea. There was a cold, rainy night. Oh, well, Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher have done it on a cold, rainy night in Donington Park, Monaco. Okay, mate. Don't take it personally. I mean, I've never really have been able to watch a sport, baseball, because obviously where I live, they don't show baseball games live because obviously, and obviously if you live in the UK, we do not have a single professional basketball team, I'm afraid. Now, I know some are going to be really annoyed at this one, but I don't find basketball to be a tactically complicated sport, to be honest. Senna, yeah, the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix. But, dude, let's not insult the great Michael Schumacher. I was never. Dude, I grew up in Britain, so unfortunately I never got a chance, and there's no need to be so insulting towards me. I know you've got the safety of your phone or your keyboard, so you can sit there and fire inputs at me like this. I'm just giving my honest opinion. The problem with basketball, I'll say this, is that thanks to the rise of modern analytics, like we now have a thing called expected shots, just like we have expected goals in football/soccer. They have obviously analysts have found that the most efficient way of scoring more points is to shoot from outside the box. Thing is, though, it's obviously more impressive when a player is able to dribble and their way past like 2 or 3 players and score from like a couple of inches out, away from the hoop than it is to score from like 10 yards away, which is the total opposite of soccer, where goals that are scored from a longer distance tend to be goal of the season or goal of the month contenders, unless, of course, there were like 13 passes involved, seeing a ball get poked in from like 2 yards out. Anyway, was it? And the other thing with basketball is I've realised that a lot of games do get decided basically within the final 2 minutes. You see both sides like clock points up to like 110 points each, and then it comes down to like the last 2 minutes, and then that's more or less when the game is decided. And then, of course, if it's still tied, then they go to like overtime or added time, and that's it. Aussie rules football. This is basically like a football game being played on a cricket oval. So the pitch is like absolutely massive, like 180 meters in length. And all I'm going to say to you, mate, is that you wouldn't even dare talk to me like that in actual real life public. I mean, half of your messages are getting order reviewed by YouTube, so you know you're not really that tough, are you? Was it next up? Australian boy rules. It's kind of a. I mean, they play with what is basically an oval-shaped rugby ball, but the fact they're constantly jumping up and down makes it look like they're playing basketball on a grass field. But the sport was actually, funnily enough, was actually derived from Gaelic football. And I have to say, though, because it's so easy to score points in Australian rules football, yeah, how you say, finally we're getting some normal people to turn up on this chat, along with, of course, the great John Cartier, along with us.
Australian Football League Lingo Lesson Part 9. The 50-meter arc. There is 50 meters. In lower level competitions, the arc is often marked at 40 meters, depending on the size of the ground.
How to play Australian football. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Encyclopedia series, where you can learn about every single game that's ever existed on planet Earth. Today in our Sports Encyclopedia series, we talk about Australian football. So, let's begin. Australian rules football, also known as Aussie rules, footy, or AFL. The object of the players is to score as many points as possible for their team. Talk about how to play Australian football. Australian football is played on an oval-shaped field with an oval-shaped ball for a set duration of 80 minutes in 4 quarters. Aussie rules is played between 2 teams of 18 players each. On each side of the field, there are 2 posts. The inner pair is called the goal post, and the outer pair is called the behind post. How to win Australian rules football. And Australian football players can score points in one of 2 ways. Goal. A goal is when a player kicks the ball through the goal post, which is awarded 6 points. Behind. A behind is when the ball goes through the space between the goal post and the behind post, which is given 1 point. At the end of the game, the team with the most points wins the game. Friends, this is an overview of how to play Australian football. However, if you'd like to learn the rules...
Anyway, that was for anyone who really doesn't have any idea. So, you know, mate, if you talk to me like that in real life, like, everyone would literally clock you out in real life, my friend. So, you know, you can be as hard as you want in a chat, but then we have cricket, obviously. Can be fun, can be dull, depending on the situation. I think a limitation that cricket has is basically it's a sport mostly played by Brits. And those who obviously come from like South Asia, like India, Pakistan. And all I'm going to say to you, since a certain person wants to be hard in this chat, is that if you went up to like an Indian or Pakistani and told them that cricket is rubbish, they'll just laugh at you and take the living daylights in a way that even harder than I ever could. So, yeah, respect the game, my friend. Then we have doubles of tennis, table tennis, and badminton. It's basically what we all know those sports to be, but of course, both of them, all of them, will have 2 players per side. So the format more or less is like fits in what the standard length of a game would be for all 3 sports. I think on average, I mean, badminton and table tennis would probably take an hour. Court tennis or normal tennis will probably take like, yeah, Australia and India are really good when it comes to cricket. I mean, we'll get onto motorsport, who a certain person wants to slag off, but I'm not gonna say too much. 2 men and 4 men bobsleigh. Oh man, this is an interesting one because, of course, you're just basically going downhill, down a slope. Whilst it might seem a bit lame to some, I mean, there's definitely an excitement element, since, of course, one mistake and you could be seriously injured or hurt in a bobsleigh run. And, of course, I mean, the 3 men that will, like, jump inside the bobsleigh are, like, adjusting levers and stuff inside the bobsleigh, like turning it left or turning it right, and they all have to remember it off by heart. Gaelic football. This is honestly one of the weirdest sports I've ever seen. I know who the hell's been having their messages held for you. It's not saying it's not John. I have seen, it's basically obviously played on the same sort of rectangle field as association football and rugby, but you can score, if you score the ball in the net, you get 3 points, and if you score over the goal bar, but in between the posts, you get 1 point. It's a sport that actually inspired Australian football. But of course, in Australian football, you can you've got like 4 posts to score points in between. Yeah, I know you're a fan of basketball, fair enough. Just that, I mean, the thing with basketball is that you can play the sport anywhere in the world or like on the street, but I will say though, it's not very easy to bounce the ball on snow or ice, and certainly not over puddles, boss. I mean, with football, you can just randomly like get any circular object or even something that's just basically a stuffed sock and start kicking it around. Heck, if you just wanted to start kicking a piece of rock around and treat it like a football, you can do it. You can do it with a piece of rock. Rugby. This is a complicated one. Now there's like 3 codes on top of Union and League. There's also Rugby Sevens, but Rugby Sevens basically looks like what would happen if you turned rugby into basketball. I'm not sure you can, my friend. Well, why the hell am I calling you a friend? You're not particularly the nicest guy I've ever met on this on the internet. So it's not that. I mean, the teamwork in scoring tries is actually pretty impressive. You've also got to realise rugby is a sport where you have to pass the ball backwards when you have it in your hands. So we actually does see a lot of whatever, mate. I mean, the thing with rugby fans is that it's really rare you ever get anyone fighting each other or like doing anything horrible. Synchronized swimming and synchronized skating and synchronized gymnastics. Well, whatever makes you feel like you're a man, fine, but I don't care. I'm way past that nonsense. But, you know, synchronized gymnastics, skating, and swimming, I think you've got to give the athletes involved a lot of credit because, you know, they work their asses off, they have to do rehearsals, and they've got to get it absolutely spot on the day when they do the whole synchronized display, whether it's skating, swimming, or gymnastics. But of course, a lot of them are pretty much treated like dirt. So then we have 3 sports that I think quite a lot of people around the world have never heard of, and frankly probably don't have a clue. Handball, and I'm gonna do another example here because, yeah.
It explains the rules of handball. Handball, otherwise known as team handball or Olympic handball, is a game that's a mixture of basketball, soccer, and ice hockey. Handball is played with 2 teams of 14, with 7 players taking to the court at any one time. This includes 1 goalkeeper and 6 field players. The object of the game is for your team to score more goals than the opposing team. To score a goal, a player must throw the ball into the goal. These goals are 3 meters wide by 2 meters high, and the ball must completely cross the goal line, and the shooting player must not step into the crease for a goal.
Right, that's enough of that. Floorball, which is a bit of a weird one because this is basically indoor field hockey with a pickleball. I mean, the Norwegian women's football team used to be pretty decent, but I think obviously now that the likes of England, Spain, Italy, France, and a couple of other nations have now taken the sport seriously. I think Portugal and Holland being the 2 others. I think that Norway have fallen really on this. Funny enough, I think the men's team is now catching up with the women's, which is an unusual thing to say. Then, of course, we have bandy, which is... Yeah, I know you're talking about handball, but I'm also talking about football for women. And then, of course, we've got bandy, which is... it's basically ice hockey played on a much bigger rink. Look at the size of this rink, it's massive. And the goalkeeper doesn't have a stick to play with, which is really
Bandy is a
odd.
winter sport that is often described as a combination of ice hockey and soccer, played on a large ice rink with sticks to hit a small ball into the opponent's goal. Bandy features fast-paced action, teamwork, and skillful maneuvering on the ice. It is particularly popular in countries with cold climates, such as Russia and Sweden. Bandy is a
I mean, it is huge. That's probably why what's it hockey, which is played on a much smaller rink, is more popular, because I think for North Americans, they want that aggression and anger, which is probably why what's it a sport like soccer never ever became one of the big four sports there. I will say the problem with ice hockey is that it's got a similar problem to rugby and American football in that brain injuries have been diagnosed. Yeah, floorball. I mean, it's really cheap, and like you only need like a ball that's like a, you know, the sort of ball you get in, what's it, pickleball tennis. It's like, I don't know what it is. I've never played floorball because obviously I'm not from Scandinavia, but it does look like a pretty fun sport, and the fact that you get to play with an ice hockey stick, which is even weirder, but the thing with ice hockey is that it's very similar to what's it, field hockey and of course association football, where one goal equals 1 point, so the scoring system is extremely simple, and the same goes for bandy and handball. Competitive cyclists, that's interesting. So I don't know, I always think that Nordic countries are too cold for cyclists to like be able to like go cycling all year round. Although in Britain it tends to just rain more often than anything else. Like we don't get that much snow. It's just a lot of rain, and well, if you like travel across any average roads in Britain, there are really well. Growing up, there were almost no cycling lanes anywhere back in like, from what I remember, in like the early 90s, and of course the early 2000s. It's only like the past 15 years, like you see way more cycle lanes being built, but we're not a cycling country. You know, expert. Damn, that sounds like having an international team for ultimate frisbee. I mean, the problem with ice hockey is, unfortunately, it's a bit like pay for play for like American kids in what they call soccer. In that, the thing with ice hockey is that you have to spend a lot of money on equipment like gloves, sticks, pads, helmets, and then of course the goalkeepers have to like spend even more on protection, because obviously they're getting hit with the rink coming at them, the puck coming at them at like 100 miles an hour. I'm being honest, like, I know I'm harsh, but I'm being honest. In fourth place, it is, of course, the most popular sport in the world, association football, which is why the nickname soccer comes from, because SOC added with a CER makes it soccer. Of course, like I said, most tactically diverse sport in the world. where you can have like up to a dozen or half a dozen formations. Oh, it's a petrol station. Okay, thanks for correcting me. 4-4-2, 5-4-1, 4-2-3-1, 3-4-2-1. I mean, I've even seen, obviously, the Spanish, when they were dominating, had 4-6-0, with, of course, Fabregas playing as the designated centre-forward, but in reality, it was just three midfielders being pushed in an advanced position, or recent times, I think we've seen, like, Pep Guardiola's 3-2-4-1 formation, which is a comeback for the old WN formation of the 1930s and 50s. We've also had, of course, we also have had 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, depending on where you place the wing backs. The thing I will say about what we call football on this side of the world, or what the Italians call Cazio, it's the fans. Like, yeah, I know a lot of Americans are like, isn't the sport basically a 90-minute commercial break? Yeah, but this is the difference between football and basically every other sport. Yeah, the 4-3-2-1 formation. Yeah, it's that the fans will often spend a lot of those minutes, a lot of those gaps in between goals, singing, chanting, booing, jeering, cheering, and even dancing in the stadium. And of course, you know, the sort of like banners they bring can be displayed on TV. Like, the players can hear everything they're saying, they're singing, they're shouting, whatever, and it plays a huge role in, like, you know, if there's like the fans are begging the players to go and attack, I mean, it gives the players a bit more motivation to sprint up the field and get a result. And then, of course, you know, fans can like boo the opposition and like jeer them and like try and get in their heads, a bit like what that person did to me about 10 minutes ago before he got bored and left because I stopped reading his comments. So, you know, thankfully it's a bit more peaceful, my chat. And of course, it's also promotion and relegation, which, I mean, it means that unlike a lot of leagues, especially in America, teams have an incentive to avoid finishing in the bottom positions of the league, which always gives the league competitions a lot more spice than what you get with what you get in America. But of course, as we all know, the Super League idea has been peddled around plenty of times in the past 4 years, sadly, because obviously relegation means that your club makes less money if you go down the divisions due to less attention. But it's that sense of community that I think European football gives that really very few sports can really capture, unless it's probably, I don't know, maybe rugby or basketball, but rugby and basketball don't have quite as high average attendances, to be honest. Teba, oh yeah, Barcelona, Real Madrid, yeah, I mean, they're the ones who have been at the forefront of this Super League malarkey. But unfortunately, though, because football is so popular and the fact that it is by far is the only sport where basically almost every country except for Monaco has an international football team, and maybe one of those tiny micronations in Oceania doesn't have one, but frankly, that's beside the point. The behavior of the players and some of the people involved can be pretty despicable, and the fact that sports washing is a thing, sadly. Now, we can argue all day long about should Saudi Arabia and Qatar host it, but there is definitely what's it? I mean, there's so many beats you get. There's some of the nations that might get to host the tournament. I mean, the thing is, like, the problem with Saudi Arabia and Qatar is that their weather is extremely humid and hot during the summer months, so it's like absolutely impossible to host the World Cup during July and June. So what's in 2034, we're going to see the World Cup postponed to October and November yet again. Oh, yeah. Gianni Infantino. Today, I feel gay. Today, I feel Qatari. I know it's called tough out there. Today, I feel like a migrant worker. What a weird rant. I know this is a slightly odd one, field hockey, that I put this so high up, but it's actually quite a decent sport. And unlike ice hockey, like the ball can actually go out of play because obviously there's like white lines enclosing the pitch. Unlike ice hockey where you just got glass everywhere. I think in bandy the puck can go out of play, but I haven't really watched enough bandy to know what the hell goes on. Yeah, I know. I know it's all about making yourself look acceptable to the rest of the world and trying to like push a bit of propaganda down some people's throats. But to be honest, I think football sold its soul decades ago, to be honest. I mean, you could argue when, the 1978 World Cup when Argentina hosted it, and I think apparently bride fever to allow them to win it. I think 934 and 938 when Italy won it was also very suspicious, especially with the number of Brazilian and Argentine born players they used in their teams. And of course, Mussolini bribing officials back then. And of course, yeah, how could I forget China? To be fair, the 2008 Olympics was pretty good, but I think it came shortly after Liu Jiang won 110-meter hurdles 4 years ago in Greece. That was one hell of a result, by the way, because no one thought that an East Asia was capable of winning a sprinting event until he turned up. And it was also around the time when, of course, yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, seeing Derby County get promoted to the Premier League back in 2007, which is the same year when Kimi Räikkönen became world champion, was something special. Yeah, but what was I going to say? I mean, the thing with football, though, is that because of the fact that, there's such long periods of the team not scoring goals or anything, I mean, everyone can just erupt into this huge sense of emotion just washes over the stadium when you actually score a goal or you win a game, you win a tournament, you qualify for a World Cup, or you get promoted to the Premier League. There really is nothing like it. I mean, the thing with field hockey is that I think its main problem is that it's just not very popular, and the fact that you can only score goals when you run inside the penalty box area, which I think is a bit lame in my opinion, but I suppose they want to encourage people to pass the ball to each other, so you don't get any long-range screamers like you do in football or, well, maybe any other sport, to be honest. Velodrome team cycling, where of course it's what was it? This is crazy. This is amazing. Yeah, defense is an art. Although the thing is, because it's so hard to score points in football, I mean, essentially, it's like there's still a huge value to have with like an amazing attacking midfielder and a striker who can provide a high goal and assist tally. I think in basketball, though, like, if you really are particularly special at, like, stopping opponents from scoring chances, blocking them, winning the ball off them whilst jumping up in the air, like, I don't know, Rodman in his prime, like, that's a really useful player to have. And to be honest, I think most of the excitement in basketball actually comes when someone misses a shot on the hoops, or the opposition defender suddenly blocks them at the last second and stops the opposition from scoring, and then regains possession of the basketball for their team. I mean, the thing with velodrome cycling is that because you're at an angle, with all those men so close to you, there is always, it could be win or spin, basically. Oh, you've seen velodrome cycling in it. Okay. I don't know, I suppose we all have our own opinions, but for me, it's just a sense of adrenaline when you watch a bunch of bicycles just go full steam at 40 plus miles an hour. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, obviously you need good defenders, and great goalkeepers are useful in football always. But the thing is, though, football by nature is a sport that it's always been by far the lowest scoring sport on average compared to literally anything else. And of course, number one, I don't know why anyone is surprised. Formula One, of course, as I described it. Oh, you've competed in velodrome cycling. Yeah, I suppose, obviously. Well, I mean, it's all about getting in the slipstream and being able to, like, pick up speed, I suppose. And, I mean, obviously, the danger aspect can be a bit of a worry for people involved. But then, of course, there's car racing, motorcycle racing, and Indy cars. I mean, I don't really need to explain this one. Obviously, because of pit stops in longer distance races, you know, the tyres, the fuel, and of course for the 24 hours of the month, driver changes. There's just nothing like it, is there? There really is nothing like it, but problem is with motor racing, it is the only sport, the only, like, motor racing series where forming a fan community is by far the most difficult, especially for the international series like Formula One, MotoGP, WRC, because there are very few people that will ever have the money or the resources, and most importantly, the time to attend like 2 or 3 or even more races a season. So, and most of the time, most people around you have got no interest in motor racing, so you're pretty much spending your time talking to people on the internet, just like I am right now. But oh, they're going to Mexico, yeah, but look at this, man. This is just amazing. Rosberg 4th. Oh yeah, because what's it? That meant that Sebastian Vettel became a world champion. What a day that was, by the way. It was a bit of a sad event. Sad race for me, because a couple of races earlier, Lawrence of Arabia, I don't know who you're talking about, but yeah, Mark Webber crashed out of the Korean Grand Prix, and that was honestly the moment I knew Mark Webber would never become a world champion. Honestly, but having said that, it was all his own fault, to be honest, because earlier on in the season, he crashed at Valencia when he collided with Heikki Kovalainen. And then then he injured his shoulder in a cycling accident, having broken his leg 2 years earlier in his own Tasmania Challenge event. So I mean, the problem with Mark Webber is that whilst he always had a great work ethic, he was the cause of his own demise more frequently than someone like Kimi Räikkönen was, to be honest, in that he always had this love of going on like dangerous adventures to like Tasmania and running through the forest and just putting himself. And not only that, he made some dumb errors when he was racing in F1 at times. I mean, in contrast, Kimi Räikkönen, the big criticism thrown at Kimi Räikkönen was that he was always drinking all the time. But the thing is, a lot of Kimi's problems in the sport was his cars breaking down like it was at McLaren Mercedes. I think he had like a 30% retirement rate. Then, of course, on top of that, he had 4 grid penalties given to him during the 2005 season, which meant he had to start 10 places lower than where he qualified. But enough of me moaning and waffling, but honestly, when Kimi Räikkönen became champion in 2007, as much as I would love to sit there and say I was jumping up for joy, to be honest, it was more of a sense of relief. It felt like Kimi finally got what he deserved, but I don't know what it was, but felt like, and something in the back of my head told me that like, when I was really young, I always thought Kimi would be destined to win like 3 or 4 world championships, but I kind of had the feeling that Kimi had become very sick and tired of F1 politics, and I know about a year or 2 later, his dad got in an accident where his dad became a full-time alcoholic who kept drinking because he couldn't deal with like the neurological pain that I think hurting his back in like an accident or something. And then sadly at the end of 2010, when Kimi had just completed a season of racing in the WRC, his dad fell out of his bed and never woke up again after banging his head against something really hard, and that was really sad. But yeah, I mean, the thing with motor racing, of course, sadly, there's also a lot of favoritism, but I guess when your driver gets to win something after like a hard period of struggle, the sense of relief is like no other, because, you know, in football, I mean, I think you more or less get what you deserve throughout like a league season. Yeah, Bubba's definitely better than those 3 drivers. Absolutely agreed. I mean, over a 38-game Premier League season, it's very rare that a team can actually genuinely blame a referee or a group of referees for sabotaging their seasons and potentially denying them the league title, European football, and of course causing them to get relegated. I mean, obviously, if it happens in like the last 3 or 4 games of the season, I think a referee's error will be picked up a lot more easily due to recency bias. In motor racing, because obviously there's always the risk of mechanical failures and team strategy mistakes. I'm looking at you, Ferrari, and of course the stewards and the race officials messing up a result. There's always that sense of I deserve better that goes on more in motorsport than arguably any other sport, because I mean, unless like in football, hockey, or any other team sport, you get a load of injuries that come out from nowhere, like you get 8 or 9 key players injured for a long period of time, which obviously then there is an element of bad luck. But then, I mean, in that case, then you really could turn to your like academy players to like really help you out. Of course, in motorsport, there's always the element of cheating, which I mean, it depends on how well you can bribe the officials in motor racing. Like, had it not been for those emails that, and of course, Mike Coughlin being caught with Ferrari documentation all the way through the 2007 season, then we could be talking about Kimi Räikkönen being one of the greatest drivers to have never won a world championship. So, you know, the racing gods actually smiled on Kimi Räikkönen for once in the only time in his whole career by giving him the most unexpected stroke of luck and favoritism in his favour, which is probably why he went and joined Ferrari, thinking that he would get the red carpet treatment like Schumacher did at certain points in his career beforehand. But yeah. I will say, I think what's the hockey sports, along with handball, are really underrated. One single point to grace, so yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, McLaren were the ones who were cheating, so I don't really feel sad about it at all. Thing is, though, under today's modern point system, I think Kimi would have won the championship by like 10 points, so what happened with like Alonso crashing out at Fuji and Hamilton having all those gizmo problems in the final race at Brazil and so on? I mean, you have to realize he had like 2 mechanical failures in 2007 with his breaking down with a hydraulics issue at Spain and of course breaking down with the same issue at the Nürburgring. Alonso and Hamilton never had a mechanical related DNF with Hamilton driving into the gravel. I don't know what else happened. I know Hamilton picked up a punch at Turkey, but while he was able to get back to the pits and change his tyres, Alonso, well, then there was that controversial qualifying incident between Hamilton and Alonso at Hungary, which, well, frankly, has nothing to do with what Kimi Räikkönen. And I mean, I know people will say Kimi was lucky that Alonso and Hamilton sabotaged each other, but, you know, I get Michael Schumacher along with Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, John Todd, and Nigel Stepney made Ferrari great again. I think we need to make a I think we need to get a hashtag going on F1. Make Ferrari great again. That'll be funny, wouldn't it? Although it has been 18 years since great Kimi Räikkönen won the World Championship for then. 18 years! Oh my goodness me! And it's been 17 since the team won the Constructors. I mean, I can sit here and complain about Kimi Räikkönen's career all day, but I honestly don't really feel that sorry for Ferrari and their World Championship drought. Yeah, I know, Santander, they wanted Fernando Alonso, but frankly, Kimi got his World Championship, and honestly, I think Kimi was just absolutely exhausted and fed up with F1 politics by that point, so he was just, I mean, to be fair though, I do think Ferrari just kind of, whilst Ferrari's new suspension didn't suit Kimi Räikkönen's driving style in 2008 with them moving from a push rod to a pull rod design, there were also a couple of mechanical issues and of course setup problems like French Grand Prix, the exhaust broke off Kimi's car and he ended up dropping from first to second. Britain, the wrong setup meant that Felipe Massa spun 1,000 times and Kimi, looked like a potential race winner in the dry conditions, but then when it started raining, his car just lacked any grip or downforce and he finished a lap down in 4th place. Although that's 5 points more than what Felipe scored that day, who finished all the way down in 13th, so at least he had Massa well beaten in the actual race itself. And then, of course, the European Grand Prix at Valencia, where his engine broke down whilst he was running in 3rd place. So, I mean, yes, okay, it was his fault when he went and crashed out at Belgium in the damp conditions. I think Kimi was getting a bit too aggressive, but, you know, not everyone's perfect, and Massa and Hamilton themselves were far from perfect that year. But then at Japan, obviously, at Fuji, what's it? Kimi was forced out wide at turn 1 by Lewis Hamilton overshooting the first corner because Hamilton had panicked at the start. Of course, I mean, back when, 2008, Lewis Hamilton was such a flaky driver at times. But to be honest, honestly, 2008 just had that feeling of it's just not your year, Kimi. I know people will say, oh, Massa beat him, but really, I think Kimi, obviously, like I mentioned, had quite a fair bit of bad luck that went his way. So, yeah, he made a couple of mistakes, also crashing into Adrian Sutil, where he was given a time penalty, a penalty. But, you know, it's just one of those things, really. But at no point was Massa really quicker than Kimi, to be honest. I mean, maybe, yeah, Felipe Massa drove a slightly cleaner season, but that doesn't make him a better driver necessarily. Kimi, I don't know. What was it? Well, Kimi had already gone back to Ferrari for 2014, you've got to remember. I think what you mean is that come a season like 2016 or 2017, Jules Bianchi might have replaced Kimi for those years. I think that's what you mean, because of course the plan was for Jules to join Sauber for a year or two, and then if he turned out to be any good, then he probably would have taken Kimi's seat, which, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but because obviously, as we all know what happened to the late Jules Bianchi, it meant that Kimi stayed until, of course, Charles Leclerc broke into the sport, which, of course, let's be honest, I think as much as I didn't want it to happen initially, I think deep down I just kind of realised that it probably would have been, when I heard Kimi joining Sauber, and then I realised, you know what, it's probably for the best Kimi swaps seats with Leclerc, because I can't take another year of Ferrari. They've already taken like 20 years out of my life expectancy with all the mistakes, their bad excuses, their mechanical issues, and all the rubbish that comes with at Maranello. And now, of course, NH44 fans are now the latest to suffer with their BS. But as I say, that's not my problem anymore. I mean, you know, it's Lewis Hamilton's fan time to take over Ferrari Fan TV. Kubica, oh yeah, Kubica, yeah, but he got hurt in that rally crash, so, well, I mean, the thing is, though, these accidents that happened to Kubica and Bianchi happened when Kimi was way past his best, so really, like, I don't know, I mean, the thing is with Kimi is that I always felt like it never seemed right to have Kimi Räikkönen at Ferrari, because those 5 years I spent supporting Kimi Räikkönen at McLaren, like he took over and replaced Mika Hakkinen, and it always seemed like it made sense because Kimi Räikkönen is not a very emotional person, nor very demonstrative. Like when I heard of Kimi Räikkönen replacing Schumacher, I thought, what the hell? And when I first saw him wear the Ferrari overalls, I thought he almost looks anemic and sick wearing those red overalls, because he's a bit. It's like the bright red colours just clash with his paleness. I was like, what the hell? He looks like a hospital patient. He looks like a hospital patient. What the hell's going on here? I mean, yeah, he got that point at Monaco. Massive point. I know everyone was slagging Kimi off that weekend, but that point at Monaco made a huge difference. And of course, he managed to overtake a few cars, despite obviously Monaco being one of the, well, by far the hardest track to overtake at. Well, the thing is, like, I think McLaren paid $17 million to release Kimi from his contract at Sauber, which was supposed to be a 3-year deal until the end of 2003. And I know Sauber called their new their new wind tunnel, the Kimi wind tunnel, because they used that money they got from McLaren paying off Kimi's contract, and they spent it on their new wind tunnel, which for the very first time, I think was Sauber the first team to have 100% size wind tunnel or something? Because I know that wind tunnel came in very, very useful and handy for BMW Sauber when they took over. It's just a shame that BMW Sauber threw in the towel halfway through 2008 once Kubica won that Canadian Grand Prix. And I mean, honestly, when you look back at what happened to Kubica afterwards, I mean, I bet Kubica wished he got in his hands and knees and begged BMW to really heavily invest in the 2008 season, considering how bad the 2009 car ended up being. And I bet you some BMW and Sauber executives wish they threw the kitchen sink at that season, because with the number of mistakes Massa and Hamilton made during that year, I bet you Kubica could have actually won the championship with a more competitive car. Like, I think he's the one who was most hard done by that season. It wasn't Kimi Räikkönen, it was Robert Kubica, especially knowing what 2009 ended up being like, and then, of course, what would happen at the start of 2011 with his rally accident. But, you know, at least, unlike Jules Bianchi, Robert Kubica lived to fight another day and did manage to complete one more season of F1 at Williams, along with a couple of guest appearances for Alfa Romeo in 2021, when, of course, Kimi got struck down with the Coupe. You know, and at least he gets to enjoy himself racing in the Ferrari sports car program. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that drive at Fuji, that was just amazing. Overtaking Ralph, overtaking DC in the pouring, blinding monsoon weather. Unreal. And he did it on a bunch of Bridgestone tyres that he didn't even like. Like, it just didn't suit his driving style, those Bridgestones. And yet, yeah, you know, I was too young and naive to realise that was pretty much the end of Kimi's peak, as much as there was a part of me that thought, yeah, there's always going to be another championship in this bloke, but obviously, a bit of bad luck, slightly troubled team relations with Ferrari, and the fact that Kimi's motivation was already on the slide meant that all Kimi did after 2007 was clinch 6 more race victories, so that he got to a career total of 21 wins, and that is all she wrote. But at least, you know, Kimi didn't end up having the same sort of career fate as Kubica, Bianchi, Jordan Lacey, who ended up with just one career win himself, and of course Nico Hulkenberg, who is approaching 200 starts in F1 and still has no podium to his name. Oh my word, that's just incredible. I think I'm going to have to make a video for Nico Hulkenberg one day, because that is one hell of a statistic. Heck, I mean, I think at some point, if he carries on into next year or the year after, I mean, if he finally wins a race, he could well break his former teammate Perez's record for most race starts before a race win. Mental. Oh my lord. I beg for Audi to give him a competitive car as soon as possible, but well, yeah, I mean, Nico Rosberg is officially German, because obviously the statistics allocate the World Championships won according to your racing license. It's not awarded according to what ethnicity you may be, which obviously you know, Alex Albon is half British, half white British, but he races for Thailand. Rosberg is half Finnish because of his dad, but he raced for Germany. Although he spent most of his life growing up in Monaco and Ibiza in Spain, so I mean he speaks perfect German, and he does sound fairly German in his accent, but I mean the troubles of a rich kid right there. Mario Andretti was born and raised in Italy until the age of 15 before he escaped to America as a refugee. And, well, it's a weird one with Mario Andretti because obviously the guy was born and raised Italian, but everything he learned in terms of motor racing in his development was all done through the Americans. So his first car race was a sprint race across a dirt track in Pennsylvania. I mean, obviously, he did eventually get the chance to race for Scuderia Ferrari later on in his career. And there was a bit of a sense of sadness that Ferrari always wished they gave Mario Andretti a chance to race for them, despite obviously his American nationality. But I know there were quite a lot of Italians who did celebrate Andretti winning the championship despite racing for the British Lotus team. Oh yeah, the area that he was born in, which is Montana or Isla or whatever it's called, is now part of Croatia, but ethnically he is an Italian, not a Croat, because obviously he's got no Yugoslavian family members to speak of. They're all either Italian or they're Anglo-American, which I think his son, Michael, is half Anglo-American, at least, and then, although his grandson, Marco, is actually, I think, at least 3/4 Italian, because obviously Michael Andretti married another woman of Italian descent. But of course, Marco Andretti was just basically the Lance Stroll of the Andretti family. Oh dear. Look at that. Look at this. Oh yeah, he also spent a bit of time racing for the Panelli Jones team before, of course, he woke up, saw Sainz, and joined Team Lotus and became champion in 1978. What a shrewd decision that was. But what was I talking about? Yeah, I know he belongs to Croatia now, that place he was born in, because of the realignment of all the European nations after World War II. I wonder what happened to that Chins guy, but yeah, I'm glad he's gone. He got bored of me yapping on and ignoring him. I know that sort of person wouldn't dare talk to like most of us like that in real life. Anyway, I don't know. This is such a mixed one with association football because I think it's a victim of his own success. It's a victim of his own popularity. I mean, the problem is we are now living in an age where, honestly, the big leagues of Europe are being broadcasted to literally every country around the world. I mean, I suppose, obviously, in some countries like Sweden, South America, and maybe a couple of countries in Asia, they still can, like, keep hold of their own football leagues and say it's one of their own because they don't have, like, many foreign players in it. Oh, yeah, I mean, rest in peace to the victims in Burma, aka Myanmar, and of course the 59 who perished at the North Macedonian nightclub. But of course, I think the most recent piece of news is, of course, the Myanmar earthquakes, which have affected people in Myanmar, Cambodia, and southwest China. Maybe Laos? I don't know, but most of the damage and fatalities have come in Myanmar, by the way. About 1,700 people have lost their lives. A very, 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 very somber week for people in Southeast Asia. Thailand and Laos, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And of course, yeah, I mean, ticket prices due to how popular associated £66 a pop, which is basically, for anyone who's American, I don't know, $100. I know Americans say that's cheap, you have to pay a fortune for Quintina Perez. I don't know who that is. I know, was it Selena Gomez was named after a singer who was deleted by a stalker 3 decades ago. I read that story. My God, I don't know what to say about. He probably sounds like the sort of guy who's a fan of volleyball down on this stage. Yeah, nah. I do find it interesting though that how females the most like, yeah, okay, the most successful, like the most financially wealthy female sports stars are generally those who are like individual athletes, like Ronda Rousey, who competed in MMA and then went on to compete in WWE. Like any women who compete in team sports like football, rugby, basketball just don't do very well because, truth be told, the technical levels that you see in those sports for women is just significantly lower. Serena, no, I was saying Selena Gomez, Selena Gomez, I think. Yeah, of course, they both come from a Mexican background. That's who we're talking about. I mean, obviously, female tennis stars also do very well. It's like, yeah, I mean, Serena, I mean, this is a thing, like, with female tennis players, they seem to do so much better when they can market themselves by themselves. I mean, when it comes to, like, I mean, with the very notable exception of Alicia Lehman, who, let's be honest, is not wealthy because of her skills on a soccer football field. She's like probably like, I don't know, not even in the top 100 best players for women's football right now, but more because of a social media profile and simps on the internet. I mean, she's okay, but she's not like the most amazing looking I've ever seen. But I don't know why that thought came into my head about female sports stars. It's just, that was probably because I thought volleyball. Having said that, though, obviously volleyball. I mean, the problem with volleyball is a sport that's mostly played in countries with beaches. Oh my God! All right, no, okay. Oh, okay, but I mean, the problem with volleyball is a sport that's mostly played in hot countries where there's like a beach, there's a lot of sand. I mean, obviously, you don't need to like necessarily grow up in a hot country to be good at volleyball, but I mean, the thing is, though, when you go to countries like Sweden, Finland, Russia, Canada, you get the ice rinks like that you can play bandy and ice hockey with. And naturally, the frozen ponds you might get in certain like places over Canada and Russia do provide pretty good services to play ice hockey with. You know, Pond of Dreams, pond hockey. I mean, they're basically just out here playing bandy, aren't they? Yeah. Enough said, John. Yeah, we all know. I mean, the thing is, obviously, the thing with volleyball is that it's just no mainstream popularity for the sport, so you're not going to be paid much money for playing the sport. So, frankly, it's only a sport restricted to places like Brazil, America, Mexico, maybe Japan, China, Croatia. I know there's some people from Canada who play it, but that's obviously mostly due to American influence. And then, of course, we have to also take into account that I have noticed that as much as Brits, people in Britain like to make fun out of Americans for being very narrow-minded as we think they are. Miss Salvador, wow, that's crazy. Sports like basketball have almost no popularity here, and I think, was it the British Basketball League, the BBL? Not that type of BBL, but the British Basketball League is, well, it's semi-professional at best. I think most of the players there probably only get paid like £100 a week if they get paid anything at all. And then, of course, a lot of track and field athletes rely on lottery funding. Volleyball is not a thing. American football is not played whatsoever. There's no professional leagues for that. We obviously have a professional league for netball, but that's because we invented it. Baseball, which used to be a sport that was actually widely played from where I come from, and which is like the reason why Derby County's old stadium was called a baseball ground, is practically extinct and has no mainstream coverage. Basketball, what else? Trying to think. Oh yeah, handball, floorball, and bandy. I don't even think you can even find anywhere to play those sports in this country. There's only about 50 ice rinks in the whole of Great Britain for a country of 68 million people. Compare that to like 30 ice rinks in Hungary, which is a country of just 10 million. Okay, yeah, I know you get Latvia and Lithuania who do like American football and basketball, but when it comes down to it, you have to realise, like, because Britain likes sports like association football and both codes of rugby, means that both of those sports, association rugby especially, gets to be like the world's #1 sport ahead of basketball, because we just see basketball as being like a children's game where you just bounce the ball around a tiny court between a pair of hoops and there's just no... And the tactics can be, at best, well, one-dimensional, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think the only sort of tactical depth you can get with basketball is the fact that because there's only 5 guys being rotated, is that you're basically man-marking other players at best. It's not like rugby or football or any sport with like 11 or more players per team, in that you can defend and attack in packs. like 4 or 5 men go running up together at once and then the other half defend. I mean, with basketball, everyone will have to take it in turns to attack and defend and keep possession of the ball. So, I know you get all sorts of names like small forward, power forward, defense man, but really, everyone's role can change into like within a flick of a switch. If if there's an opportunity for like a basketball defense man to score at the hoops, then he'll go and attack instead. And if one of the main attacking stars of the team, like Pete Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, has to go and defend, he'll go and defend instead of attack. So I kind of think all these names you get in basketball for position names is a bit pointless compared to like soccer, well, association football and rugby, where there's a reason why like players get like certain position names given to them, because a big 20-stone forward who plays as a hooker is very, very different to a flanker who will be sprinting the whole width of the field. I mean, yeah, China had a version of football which was just, it was called Kuju, when you just kicked the ball around back and forth to each other, but there was no goal, mouth, or net as we know it today. It was just, I don't know. I don't think there was any goal mouths. It's just them kicking the ball back and forth to each other. I mean, did they have a goal target? I don't know. I know a lot of people have talked about China being the home of football in terms of its like own form, but the thing is though, I mean, Britain used to have a thing called mob football, which is like, I don't know whether Kuju had goals being scored in it, but I mean, was it? Trove Tide. I mean, this is basically what old school British football looked like before they actually implemented proper rules and parameters for the field. It's just a load of big, burly men, balding men smashing into one each other, and it's like the goalposts are like 10 miles apart in the village. And I know they do the same thing in places like Leicestershire and Warwickshire, but they do have their own like regional twist on mob football. Look at that, it's just men throwing the ball around, and it's just like a thousand odd men just chasing the ball around. That's like what English football really was. But yeah, obviously with the Sheffield rules coming in for association football, there was finally like an established rule set for what we know as football or soccer, as the Americans call it. And then of course in a town called Rugby, a kid named Webb Ellis decided, instead of kicking and running with the ball, he decided to pick the football up in the middle of what was an association football match, but then he decided to create his own sport, and he called it rugby football, which then became rugby union and rugby league when the Northerners fell out with the Southerners because the Northerners couldn't get time off needed to go and play rugby, and of course they wanted a sport where they could, I don't know, have at least 2 days off so that they could play the sport on the weekend and make sure that they could earn their living. I mean, the thing with China is, I'm going to say this, I just thought about this. I think I wouldn't be surprised if, China decides to push towards a sport like ice hockey. Now that obviously their World Cup hopes are hanging by a thread once again, But of course, the fact that they're going to fail to qualify for 48-team World Cup since they only have 6 points out of 8 games. And Indonesia, wait, is it Indonesia or is it the Dutch B team? The Dutch B team have not 9 points, but obviously their next game is going to be up against Dutch expats XI. And of course, if they lose to them, that's it for China. They will not be heading to America next year. Although it has to be said, it's been a well-known fact that China has been honestly well out of the loop when it comes to modern football. You know, the fact they themselves have signed up a few Brazilian expats and a couple of British expats in Nico Yaneris and of course Tyus Browning, and even that Dutch guy called John Suker, whatever his name is. I think what's it though? Only John Suker, Tyus Browning, and Nico Yaneris actually have any Chinese blood in them. The rest of the Brazilian players are just Brazilian. But yeah, I think we're getting to the stage. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese Communist Party decide to start pushing sports like ice hockey. Since I mean they entered the Winter Olympics team for that tournament with like a bunch of mostly Canadian players, with half of whom have like distant Chinese heritage in them, and maybe a sports like rugby league, due to the fact that rugby league is a simpler version of rugby union, and of course Australian rules footy. Although of course I wouldn't be surprised if China were really smart and decided to manipulate the rules of Australian football, since of course they can't exactly go and play it on a oval field, since I don't know whether there's any cricket pitches in China of such, since they don't really play cricket. I mean, the thing with Australian football and rugby league is that tactically they don't have the same level of complexity as like rugby union, association football. Just push for more motorsport. Yeah, but dude, what are you gonna do though? Like Russia tried to push for more motorsport, and all they got was Danny Kvyat. That was it. I know Vitaly Petrov got a podium. That's it though. Like you gotta realize, like the only way you can really make it a motorsport is to produce a Fernando Alonso or a Max Verstappen like Spain and the Netherlands did, but they have a big advantage in that they happen to be European nations. So, and they also happen to have a couple of decent world-class race circuits that the general public can access, as well as a decent karting community. As for China, though, let me remind you of this absolute disaster. How the Olympic, I don't know, what race was this? Yeah, apparently, what was it? The final corner at Beijing's street track in the A1 Grand Prix was so narrow that they had to move the barriers further to the right hand side so that the cars could make a full 360 degree turn. Yeah, Yi Fei. Yeah, dude, this is a thing though. Yi Fei had one bad year in FIA Formula 3, and then he was forced to pretty much go towards Judy, the Porsche sports car program, and now he drives for Ferrari sports cars team. So he ran out of money. It's like, and no one from China wanted to throw money at him. So they don't even have a clue what they're doing with motorsport either. Like, I mean, truth be told, the other thing is with motorsport is that, apart from the motorsport geeks like myself and you two in the chat, it's not really the sort of sport that can get, like, I don't know, an entire nation engrossed in an international match like ice hockey can, rugby, association football or even basketball can. They threw money on Zhou. Yeah, that's because his dad probably, I think his dad bribed him. That's why. I mean, the thing is, though, everyone knew that after 6 years of Formula 3 and Formula 2, where he won about a grand total of about 9 races, which, of course, I mean, he took like 2 years to win a race in Formula 3, which is a pretty much a red flag in itself. And the fact that he didn't win a race in his first year of Formula 2 either, which is another red flag. And the fact that he could only straight past beating an 18-year-old French kid called Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who did a couple of FIA Formula 3 races and then tried his luck in GTs and then pretty much has returned back to the real world, probably now gone to uni or got a real job. Yeah, I mean, the other problem with Formula 1 is that most Formula 1 races are held at, like, I don't know, probably 10 o'clock at night for people in China. Watch Mojo, 10 o'clock. I mean, that's like, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning for like Australians living in Sydney and Adelaide. And then, of course, when they go and head over to somewhere like North America, then it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 o'clock at night. So, is this really a sport the Chinese want to invest in? It's not cheap either. Like, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if China started throwing money at handball. I mean, because handball is only a sport that's particularly popular in Germany, France, and I think Sweden. So it's not like they've got too many nations to go and compete against. I think what China will do is just throw money at like minority sports like handball, ice hockey. Although, of course, ice hockey's already got a lot of like stat quality, and I don't know, rugby league, where of course only England, Australia, and maybe occasionally New Zealand might be competitive in the Rugby League World Cup. Or they'll probably create their own little version of Australian football and Gaelic football. I'd crudely call it Chinese football, since of course, you know, they'll probably do anything. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, oh yeah, what was it? Norway, Brazil, Spain, and Portugal also do well at handball. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. But you know what's most likely is going to happen is that China will probably just create a new team sport of their own, which is just going to basically be, it'll be like a rip-off of something like handball and maybe Gaelic football and Australian football, and then, I don't know, maybe they'll deliberately like make their players put at that particular code of the sport so that they can force the Irish and the Australians to like abandon their roots of Gaelic football and Australian football and make them play Chinese football if the Chinese Communist Party can cough up the money to like pay their athletes loads of money to play the new Chinese code of their version of what is basically kicking the ball up the field with their hands. Taiwan and South Korea, yeah, they're also good at baseball along with Japan. I mean, I think the time has come and gone for like China to be in any sort of like stick and ball sports, to be honest, because if they wanted to play baseball, rounders, or cricket, they would have done it by now. But really, I don't think I just think the tactical complexity of those games would be too difficult for like Chinese sports coaches to teach the kids how to play it properly. No, I mean, basketball is actually the most popular sport in China, but apart from Yao Ming and a couple of other star names, I think the sport has just stagnated. And the fact that a sport where the average height of the players are like 6'4" is, for a country where the average height of your average bloke is like 5'8" at best, it's a really strange one, isn't it? I mean, mind you, obviously, I think South Korea have got the tallest men on average in terms of height with 5'9" compared to all the other East Asian and Southeast Asian nations, but I mean, it's the same thing with the Philippines. What's the difference between Beckham and Senna? Beckham could bend it around the corner. That's so cruel. Oh my god, I don't even know what to say, mate. You really do come out with some of the craziest stuff. Darkest jokes ever. Yeah, well, I don't know. Adrian Newey, well, who knows what he thinks of what really happened? I don't know. I think I've blabbed on long enough. You know what? I think I'm going to end the stream because I didn't plan on talking for this long, but I have. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.